Welcome to another episode of I Quit My Job, where ordinary stories leads to extraordinary inspirations. And on this episode, we have no other than Andrew Bromfield. So Andrew's technology, business. He's a key partner in your digital transformation if you ever need that with your business. Um, Once I met Andrew and just his worth of knowledge and just his skills and just his take on life and just the way business operates has motivated me in many ways. And so this one's very special. So, Andrew, thank you so much, brother, for showing up and gracing our presence.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. I've been watching the last couple, well, since the beginning. I've watched all the podcasts. Love what you're doing. Definitely exposes the community to the wealth of entrepreneurs and the diversity of entrepreneurs that are here in the GTA. So that's cool. And when I got the call, when you told me that you wanted me to come on, I was thrilled.
What I'd love for you to do is just kind of tell us where you're at, what you've been doing, and just keep us current in where you are, and then we'll take it from there.
Well, it's funny because, the company Formative Innovation, when I started my company, I started researching other tech companies and looking at, how they name themselves, right? And I realized that a lot of organizations, they transform over time. And so when I came up with Formative Innovations, I said, you know what? I'm in technology today, but that may change. So I want a name that can change with the company and our direction and what our focus is. So my passion now is a platform that we built called My Five Mentors, which is really about preparing people for the future of work. So a long time ago, around 2007, 2008, we were working in healthcare. And I just saw where AI was going to go and started to think we need to skill up.
Wow. So since 2007, you've been on the radar for AI.
Oh, yeah. Because I was seeing it, right? In the work that we were doing.
So at any point when you were starting out, was there a point where you had to either quit a job, change a career, or was this what you started and just kind of developed along the way?
So I was working at a big four consulting firm. I was traveling a lot. I spent most of my time in the United States consulting in the telecommunications sector. And so it was a great experience. I met a lot of good people, gained a lot of valuable experience. One of the things before entering that role is, I was super shy, right? So I had very little confidence in terms of public speaking or leading a team or anything like that. So I specifically took that position because it required traveling. So you really have no time to be shy. You gotta, dive in. You gotta build rapport with your team real quick.
You're getting all this experience,
right?
You're building your confidence outside. So what was that change? When did that happen?
So I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. So both my parents were entrepreneurial, right? Completely different industries, but nonetheless, I was exposed to that. When I'll never forget the conversation I had with the partner. They had just promoted me. So for them, they went out through all these hoops to get me promoted. So I was just going back and forth, and finally I just said, just be honest. And I said, okay, listen, you might think that I'm giving you 100%, but I'm giving you like 40%.
You said that?
I said that, right?
Wow.
Because it was the only way that he was going to stop trying to convince me. So at that point, he said, what can I say to that? So obviously, he said, well, I wish you the best of luck. And again, this is the calculated risk. He said, if it does not work out, do not go anywhere else before you come see me first.
Right? Wow.
So what's the risk when you're jumping ship when you already know that you could always go back to where you were before, right?
And did you enjoy what you were doing before?
So when I was consulting, they would tell me like on Wednesday, hey, we need you to fly out to Los Angeles this Sunday. So after a few times of doing that, my friends were all like jealous because they're like, oh, you get to fly everywhere. You get to eat out, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm West Indian. We don't, so that gets tired real quick. So for me, I felt like I had no control, right? Like you're telling me I'm going to be here Sunday for 2 weeks, right? So then I was just like, wait a second, I don't have control over my life. So that's when it really started to catch fire that, you got to do your own thing. But the pushback from my parents, ironically, because they were both entrepreneurs, was like, why would you do that?
Right.
Why are you even thinking of leaving? You got this good job, this promising career. Why would you leave to start your own thing? It makes no sense to them. And it made no sense to me why they were telling me that when they were both
Entrepreneur.
entrepreneurs, right?
Right, right,
Until I started.
right, right. So then you figured what this entrepreneur life was all about. Was this a long, let's say, transition from working to being an entrepreneur, or once you made that cut, you started the next day? How was that
So,
transition in between?
okay, so I knew I was eventually gonna leave. I didn't know how long.
Mhm.
I thought I had a year or two. But it was 8 months after my headspace got around entrepreneurship. So for 8 months,
8 months.
yeah, I didn't spend money on anything. I paid down all my credit cards, paid off my student loan. I paid off everything so that I had a clean slate
Mhm.
going into my venture, and
Wow.
then I had money that I also saved
Mhm.
to put towards it. And this is why when I said I was giving them 40%, is because I started to have clients on the side, right? And it got to the point where, I'm always leaving the office, at lunchtime and whatnot to take calls from my other clients. And that's when I said, like, this, it's not fair to them. It's not fair to me.
Right,
It's not
right.
right. And if I'm going to do it, I gotta jump in and try it. So that's what it was.
So once you started, like, when did you finally say, "Hey, this is something for me"? Like, what did you have your own office? Were you working from home?
Yeah. I think I was at home for a year, before starting or going out and getting our first office. And it was because I got a decent sized project.
Mhm.
I had a couple of smaller ones, but this one that came in, I was like, okay, we need to have a presence.
So those companies that you started, like, were
Mhm.
they all within the same sector of what you're doing?
So the first company, it was more so, um, that was the first lesson of entrepreneurship, is that, and it's nothing to take away from these guys. They're still my friends to this day. That not everyone's going to take the risk at the same time, right? So I jumped. I left a good job, and I was completely on my own, trying to build a business with those who were still tied to their day jobs,
Right,
right?
right.
And so it came to a point where it was just like, okay, there's got to be a decision here. You're either cutting and running, or I'm going to do this 100% on my own.
Right, right. So you don't really go into that route of having investors, or you don't look at that? Like, and so what are your views on that, and
So
why you don't need investors, especially as an entrepreneur now?
right. So for me, I'm not looking for the quick wins. I'm looking for how far can I get down the track with baton to pass it to my kids and
Mm,
set them up in a way that, okay, my dad didn't do X, or he did do X, right?
mhm.
But he's now empowered me just like my parents did. What I've learned,
Right,
it can't
right,
come from a
right,
PhD,
right.
right?
Please explain, because this is what the show is all about.
From my perspective, would be about building your network, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, that person that you sat in that class in the MBA program with is now the CEO or vice president of a company you're targeting. So
Right.
you can call that person and say, "Hey, remember when we were da 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 da? This is what I'm doing now." So definitely there's benefit to that.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, you can build that network without it.
You got good advice from your parents. You also got the support and actually saw what they were doing in order to motivate you, or inspire you
Mhm.
to get into the entrepreneurship. At one point, where do you think they were trying to protect you from
100%.
being an entrepreneur? And how what's your take on that?
Yeah, because again, the fact that nobody ever really knows the pressure that you're under, because you can hide it well and you can manage it well. You learn how to do it. I mean, 18 years in, there's not too many things that can happen where you're going to see me freak out. Um, you know, and so there's a lot of things that, situations and whatnot, but that my wife may not necessarily have known the depth of it from a financial standpoint. My parents. So coming back to what you just asked, who knows if my parents went through those same periods? I had no clue, just like my kids have no clue,
Right, right. You
right?
just keep it straight face.
That's it, right? So that's what they were trying to protect.
So how do you know so much about technology? But what is it that keeps you on top of the game?
So I self-learn. And I have a peer group of those, who we push each other. Now, as I order books. I don't really take coursework because that's not how I learn. but I self-study. So again, this control thing, right? I need to be in control of how fast I'm learning. I can't do a 16-week course.
Right.
I could do it in 4 days,
Right.
at my own pace.
That's a pretty quick pace. 4 days.
But again, again, I'm addicted to learning, and it's just I've trained myself for 18 years.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Well, even before that, university, to consume knowledge at a high rate.
So some of this knowledge, did you get this from a mentor over time for you to be better prepared? And is this why you started your business based on mentorship?
So again, a couple of things that you just said there. So my parents were entrepreneurs, but they were in a completely different field. So they gave me a lot of key insights from a general standpoint of running a business. They came from an era where business is local. I come from an era where business is global.
Global, exactly.
Right? So it's completely different. So yeah. So the knowledge was, again, having that circle. Mentorship was huge. That's why I created the platform, because I'm not where I am without having mentors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that when it comes to mentors, as the mentee, you do the work.
Right.
The mentor is not supposed to carry the relationship.
Right.
The mentee has to chase.
Right.
And then I came up with, I was explaining it one day, and I said, being a mentee, picture your mentor as an air traffic controller, and they've got all these bleeps on a radar screen. You need to bleep. You can't just disappear and expect that they're going to
come save you. Right.
So you got to keep bleeping. And so every time I would bleep and say to one of my mentors, hey, just touching base, blah, 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 blah. Hey, Andrew, it's uncanny that you just reached out to me. There's this project, and you know what? You'd be a perfect fit for it. Right. And so I'd get opportunities, but I had to keep bleeping and then, and asking people to be my mentor. So that was the other thing I learned, is that people who mentor want to mentor. They want to teach. They want to impart knowledge onto the younger generation. Mm-hmm. So don't be shy in saying, I want you to be my mentor, and giving them the title or her the title. Right. Because then they'll respond different. You know what I mean? Now they are going to, look for opportunities for you. They are going to take your call whenever it comes in, or respond to your text or your email, because you've solidified it, and you got to do that. Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah. So a lot of what I learned and whatnot came from mentors that I actively sought out and said, I need you to be my mentor.
How did you realize the worth of that network? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you've kind of seemed like you grabbed onto that early.
Because the consumer's distributing, man. I saw it, right?
But how did you see that in consumers?
No, because I saw my dad get me the connection that got me in there. So my parents, they had extensive networks from being in business and whatnot. So, back in elementary school, you'd have to sell the chocolate almonds. And get prizes. I was walking out of the gym with ghetto blasters and whatnot.
Yeah, you were killing it.
Because my parents would take it to their network, and I would crush the sales without doing anything, right? But so again, I saw how it worked. That's amazing, bro. Right? So yeah, I had a boombox,
So this is amazing, man. Like, just even your take on technology and business. So you're really fluent in that whole business technology.
The bottom line is that I learned very early that there's a primal nature to business. It's hunter-gatherer, right? Mm. If you give me an opportunity, if you give me money, it means you're taking money away from your family to give me money. Right. So and your goal is to create as much as you can for your legacy. Right. So once you understand what drives decision, like what really drives decision, forget about what you hear them say publicly. Mm-hmm. And I've been in boardrooms, so I know what actually drives, like, how decisions are made.
How are those decisions made?
It's bottom line. If your compensation, if your livelihood is pegged to that company increasing its revenue, that's what you're going to do. You're out, right? Just like a coach on a team. If you're not winning, you're out.
You're out.
It's a zero-sum game. It's very simple.
Like, if you could just give us a couple turning points of, like, throughout your career or your milestones that said, hey, once I made this change, then my attitude changed, and I start to realize this is how I go forward.
The confidence is huge. So if I worked my butt off to learn what I learned, and I strongly express my opinion on something in a boardroom or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to worry about what other people say or think.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was always about, and I wish I did it earlier. My biggest regret is that I didn't gain the confidence I have now earlier. If you don't have confidence,
Mm-hmm.
if you feel less than,
Mm-hmm.
right, as a business person, and I've seen this with other business owners who have low confidence, right?
Right.
You will charge less.
Right. Of course.
You
of
will
course.
charge. You will give everyone a discount.
Right. I'll charge you $2,000 an hour. Is that really your worth, or is that really your price?
There's the market, which will govern how much people are willing to pay for your worth,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's actually what you need to make to keep your lights on. For me, the turning point was having the confidence, and then also, like I just said, trusting my gut. My gut says don't do it, I don't do it. So what helped me is like having entrepreneurs in my network, so that if I failed, they'd be like, "Oh, you only failed once? I did that 5 times."
Right.
You're ahead of you're smarter than me. You know what I'm saying? But so to have people who understand the experience, been there before,
right,
that does a lot to get you over those humps, right? Because you don't feel like a failure when you realize it's part of the process.
Right. Trust that process.
So I would suggest to you as well, get that circle going.
Well, there you have it, man. This was amazing. It was filled with gems. Very educated brother beside me. I love speaking to this dude off air sometimes just to kind of get the feel of what's really happening in the world. And so, thank you again, brother, for showing up. I loved what you said. Just motivates and inspires me. So hopefully it's doing that to you out there. And I want to thank you again for showing up and listening. And Andrew, once again, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And this is I Quit My Job. I'm Slowly Plus One. Thank you so much. And see you on the next one. Peace.